Okay, mustard. Sure, you can go to the store these days and find some pretty high quality mustard at a low price point, but what's the fun in that? Making mustard at home can be a ton of fun, and there are, dozens of ways you can get creative with it. Hot mustard, Chinese mustard, German mustard, French mustard. You get the idea. There's a lot of different mustards that you can make. Today we are going to focus in on 3 different mustards. The first of which is going to be a whole grain mustard made with beer. The second one is going to be an English style mustard. And the third is going to be a French style Dijon mustard. And I put Dijon in air quotes because Dijon is a region in France which makes a ton of different kinds of mustards. Grey Poupon isn't the only kind of Dijon, though we are going to make a Grey Poupon-esque Dijon today, so keep that boy up. Keep that boy up nice and tall. Okay, yeah, let's go. To make mustard, we need mustard seeds, and for the Dijon and beer mustard, we need those seeds to be soaked and fully hydrated. These are brown mustard seeds, which are more pungent and stronger than yellow mustard seeds. For the Dijon mustard, pour 3/4 of a cup of brown seeds into a container and cover with water by a couple inches. Whirl that around a bit, then pop that lid on, set it aside, let it sit at room temperature overnight. Next, start the beer mustard seeds. And for beer mustard, of course, we need beer. This is my favorite beer. I'm using a nice dark porter today, but you can use any beer that you like. Stouts, IPAs, and crisp lagers, those are some of my favorites to use. In goes 1/2 cup of brown mustard seeds, then 1/4 cup of yellow. Yellow seeds are a lot milder and slightly larger in size than brown. Top her off with 1/2 cup of apple cider vinegar and 1/2 cup of beer to finish. Cover it all up and set it aside at room temperature to soak overnight. We need to wait a bit to make those mustards, but we can get started on the English variety right away. That's because we will not be using whole mustard seed, but rather mustard powder made from pulverized yellow and brown seeds. Into le bowl goes 1/2 cup of loosely packed mustard powder, I'm using the Colman's brand, then 1/2 teaspoon of salt and 1.5 tablespoons of sugar. Mix those dry ingredients together, then add 2 tablespoons of apple cider vinegar and 1.5 tablespoons of cold water, then keep whisking. And yeah, that's all you do, it's really that easy. After its first mix, the mustard is pretty spicy, so I like to let it sit and mellow out for a day, 2 days, maybe even 3 days in the fridge before I touch it. It is now the following day and our seeds are fully hydrated, which will make them a lot easier to break down, so let's start with the beer mustard. Bring a small saucepan to medium heat, then in with 5 tablespoons of brown sugar, a teaspoon of salt, and the remaining 1/2 cup of beer. When the mixture forms a syrup and comes together, remove it from the heat and bring it to room temperature. You can let it cool at room temperature, or you can chill it down in an ice bath, just make sure it's not piping hot. Grab the pre-soaked seeds, then pour them and their soaking liquid into the blender, followed by that syrup we just made. Cover that up and blitz on high for 10-15 seconds, something like that. Now pour the beer mustard into a resealable container and store it in the fridge. Again, I like to wait a day or 2 before eating this. Okay, toit. 2 mustards down, all that's left is the Dijon. Start the Dijon by draining the seeds. We only want the soaked seeds for this first part, ditch the water. Full disclosure, just a heads up, Dijon mustard takes a bit of elbow grease to make. We're gonna smash and grind the seeds with a mortar and pestle. For the initial bashing, smash the seeds until you can see more yellow pulp than brown. Put your favorite mustard bashing song on to pass the time, because this part takes about 10 to 12 minutes, so get comfy. Really make sure your seeds are mashed before moving on, it's important. Once your seeds begin to look something like this, add in 1/2 of the white wine and continue crushing. After a minute or so, add the remaining wine and keep mixing for another couple minutes. Then it's in with 2 tablespoons of both salt and sugar. Adding sugar cuts the bitterness from the mustard, while adding acid like wine or vinegar tempers the heat, so remember that. Once the mustard reaches this consistency, work in 2 tablespoons of white wine vinegar and keep mixing. Finally, add in a tablespoon or 2 of water and stir a final time. Essentially, we're forming an emulsion between all of the liquids that we just added and the mustard seeds. Unfortunately, in my experience at least, this is something that just can't be done with a blender or a food processor, so warm those forearms up. This is the final step that is going to turn our coarse mustard into a classic, air quotes, Dijon mustard. Pass the coarse mustard through a fine mesh sieve with the back of a spoon and harvest the filtered stuff into a bowl. Would you look at that? Wee wee, boyos, wee wee. Let's get a good look at our work side by side by side. Here we have the English mustard with its beautiful orangish yellow hue. Then the whole grain beer mustard, dark and sexy, very, very nice, very nice. And what type of mustard video would this be without a proper taste test? And what better way to test out various mustards than with a gorgeous, juicy, homemade Toulouse sausage? From left to right, we have the Dijon, the English, and lastly, the beer mustard. Oh yeah. Beer, English, French. Alright, I'm going right to left, starting with the Dijon. Light, airy, fairly mild. You can taste the white wine, very delicious. Moving on to the mustard. Oh yeah, spicier. Oh, I like that. And lastly, the beer mustard, the grainy one. Definitely on the sweeter side. The texture is great. Got that grainy feel. I like it in a good way. Overall, these mustards are all quite delicious. They all have sort of their time and place, and they're great in their unique ways. I wouldn't say any of them are better than the others, but I do have to say so far, the English boy, the really spicy one, has my heart. Alright, that's all from me for this week. Thanks for nerding out over mustard, and yeah, I will see you next week, so ta-ta.